last 5 years, since 2020, pretty much every graph you can think of has looked weird. Oil prices briefly went negative, and then they skyrocketed. Public transit use has fallen off a cliff. People have been spending a lot more on restaurants and buying a lot more stuff online. Everyone became an alcoholic. People started murdering a little more and stealing a lot less, and stealing a lot more, and then stealing a lot less. But the graph I want to talk about today is this one. Americans and Canadians have been getting scammed like crazy. And with each passing year, we've been getting scammed more. Of course, it's no surprise that giving Mima an iPad and access to the internet basically guaranteed that her brain would get one-shot by an AI-generated image of her grandson begging for money.
Sure.
But what's interesting about this precipitous rise in scams is how sophisticated...
This makes it seem like the grandma's the stupidest fucking person alive. But actually, these scams have gotten so advanced. They'll find a voice clip of your fucking son or daughter, and then they'll train the AI on it, and then they'll have it call you and say, "We've got your kid kidnapped," and it'll play the voice clip. And like, unless you're fucking up to date on that shit, like they're getting crazy with it. They can absolutely put the fear of God in there, and especially when you're someone close to you's life is on the line, you're not thinking super critically.
Her grandson begging for money, but
like literally good to have a fucking safe word or something like you can actually trust it's me code.
What's interesting about this precipitous rise in scams is how sophisticated the industry has become. It isn't just a few people in an apartment calling up retirees and tricking them out of their life savings. These new scams are run by highly effective international organizations of thousands of people, and none seem quite as widespread as Canada's CRA.
Glizzy. You're actually kidnapped and you have to tell your mom Glizzy before she'll send you the money to get you out. Glizzy, Mom! Glizzy! It's me, Glizzy! Yeah, I don't think that's a good one. I told my grandma I'm never talking to her again so she can never get scammed by an AI version of me. I guess if you love something, let it go. That's really powerful of you.
The organization running this scam, which has been going for roughly the last decade, has managed to contact every single adult in Canada at least once and has cost Canadians hundreds of millions of dollars.
What?
So let's talk about what this scam is, how it managed to become so successful, and most importantly, how you can get in on the grid.
Okay.
Sorry, my lawyers told me I had to lose that last point. Well, I guess we'll focus on the first two. So, on the surface, the CRA scam is about as simple as scams come. Let me set the scene. You get home to your igloo after a long day of mapling syrup or whatever is that Canadian school day,
Canada.
and you see a message on your answering machine from the Canada Revenue Agency. In most cases, this message will be listed as coming from the actual CRA phone number. Of course, it's not, but faking this is a matter of watching like a 3-minute YouTube tutorial. In the most common version of the scam, the message on the phone will inform you that there's a warrant out for your arrest due to unpaid taxes, and given that most people are only like 60% sure that they paid their taxes correctly, but 100% sure that they don't want to go to prison, this can sound somewhat plausible, at least in the moment. They'll give you a number to call back, and if you do, a supposed CRA agent will confirm that it's true, but that's good news. You can stay out of prison by paying those taxes right now. Having pulled up your address while you respond, they'll then direct you to a nearby bank to withdraw some ludicrous sum of money, which you'll then send via courier to another address in Canada. In an earlier version of this scam, they had you deposit the money into a Bitcoin ATM, but Canada started sticking signs on those machines to...
Okay, how the fuck could you fall for that? I can understand if you could pay by credit card on the phone, but if the guy's like, hey, you have to go to a Bitcoin ATM, that's brain cancer. That's so stupid. You think Canada is calling you and telling you have to deposit your unpaid taxes in a Bitcoin ATM?
Tell people that the Canadian government does not, in fact, accept Bitcoin as payment, and that Bitcoin should only be used for buying illegal drugs and doing money laundering. So once you've mailed your money to that address, which unbeknownst to you is most likely someone's apartment, the scam is over, at least for you. Thank you for participating in the scam. Now,
had a friend fall for this. She was new to the country and her home country's government was a lot more crooked, so she fell for it. That's sad, I guess. Just thinking, yeah, it must be the same here. Yeah, I don't know. That's crazy, but Listen, I could see falling for it if you thought it was taxes. The Bitcoin ATM should be a hard line. That just takes a little bit of common sense.
This all sounds pretty straightforward and not particularly sophisticated. But the success of the CRA scam isn't in its surface level execution, it's all about what's happening behind the scenes. Because unlike scams of yore, the CRA scam is operated by a massive network of people, and these people are organized in a structure that makes it systematically impossible to actually stop the scam from happening. To illustrate, we should start with the heart and soul of any organization,
the money mule.
The lowest level employees who have no idea what's going on. In the CRA scam, these are the money mules. Remember how, when you got scammed a minute ago, you mailed your money to a random address somewhere else in Canada? This was the house or apartment of a money mule, a person whose job it is to receive your money and hand it off to someone else in the organization. Now, of course, as soon as you realize that the Canada Revenue Agency doesn't operate out of a single studio apartment in Ottawa, you'll probably send this address a second lovely package, the police. But when the police arrive, there's a very good chance that your money mule will be just as surprised as you were. In the most effective version of the CRA scam, this person doesn't even know what the scam is, let alone that they're participating in it. In many instances, they're just a student from India who believes that they've taken a part-time job moving money from Canadian customers to some legitimate business in India. When the police finally do show up, this
What is that job? A part-time job moving money? Someone gives you money, you send it somewhere else because you have a skill in that? What job is that? That's not a job. We call them money trains now. Someone's got to do it.
Doesn't
no
know
one's
anything
got
about who they're actually sending money to, and that money is already gone. Where? Well, it's been picked up by the organization's inner mules, who are responsible for getting the money out of Canada and back to India, where the scam was organized. They do so using what's called a hawala system, a 700-year-old informal banking system that can move money across borders without any kind of government regulation or
Yeah, it's the same as the
A hawala
the
system
Chinese
works
one.
a lot like a traditional banking system, but is regulated by honor and personal connections instead of, like, actual laws. There's a network of hawala brokers around the world in cities with large Indian diasporas who can transfer your money to any other city that has a broker in their network. All you have to do is give them the money and a password, and then your recipient can pick up the money from their broker as long as they have the correct password. Of course, the money was never actually moved, and therefore can't be traced by real banks or government agencies. It was just an informal agreement between two hawala brokers over the phone. Turns out that the threat of your family being mad at you is pretty much enough to regulate an entire international banking system, in case we were looking for a punishment for financial crimes besides you get $700 billion.
Right.
At this point, the money has made it back to India, which is where the phone call came from in the first place. Most likely it came from one of several dozen call centers in either Mumbai or New Delhi, staffed by 10 to 20 people, and set up in either an office, apartment, or hotel room. Importantly, though, these 10 to 20 people generally don't make any of the initial calls. This is done instead by a robo-dialer, which works its way down the list of Canada's 31 million or so registered phone numbers, leaving a message from the CRA.
Oh my God.
That means that the callers inside the center only need to speak to the small fraction.
This is so complex just to fucking farm Canadian old people. That's crazy. They said at the beginning that every Canadian has been contacted at least once. That's crazy. What happened to old school human scammers, you know? When did the robots come and take away the job of like a real, honest to God, hardworking blue collar scammer? You put some thought into what they say to try and trick you.
People convinced enough to call back, freeing up capacity for other callers to do real-time research on the victim, like where they live or what they do for work. And distributing these callers across several dozen centers in different cities isn't a mistake. These centers can be set up and dismantled in a matter of a few hours, so if investigators catch on to one, the other callers can quickly shift their operations and the investigation goes cold. You might manage to make a few arrests, but the rest of the system remains intact, and the leadership, who are never on site and likely not even in the country, are effectively impossible to find.
That's wild.
Of course, the CRA scam isn't the only one operating at this scale. There are similar.
Do you think the leadership sits in a dark room like this with 4 monitors outside of India, just watching the whole thing and laughing maniacally? I think this is a good image of... I think this looks like my viewers.
Of course, the CRA scam isn't the only one operating at this scale. There are similarly sized, if not even larger organizations operating out of places like Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia, often setting up massive Starlink-powered slave compounds to defraud the Western world with only the efficiency that Elon Musk could manage. As these organizations grow larger and get increasingly sophisticated, their tools for targeting victims also get more effective. They've started, for example, purchasing contact data, like your phone number, email, and home address, directly from data brokers who can legally scrape that stuff from the internet and sell it to scammers for profit. This is why I've started using this video sponsor, Incogni.
Fuck. You got me. You fucking got me. That was interesting. That was interesting. That was interesting. More learning, more learning.